Good morning, Sam. How are you?
I love how you keep. Good morning, Dave. How you keep changing the price point parallel. The drink at your favorite watering hole. Side story: I was in LA last week in the JW Marriott across the street from Staples Center.
Ooh, I'm Sam. I stay at the JW Marriott. Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I didn't stay there. I just went for a adult beverage.
Right.
And I think you could get about 3 athletic subscriptions for the price of one adult beverage at that particular joint.
It's very true, and I've seen that before. They have no problems charging like $18.95 for a martini, and that's at the bar, not room service.
Yeah, there was. I think I struggled at math in school, but there were 4 people and a grand total of 7 drinks for the evening's affair, and then after tip, it was $119.
Oh God. You know, and I'm not a huge drinker, but that's where my friend Frankie Flask would probably come into play at some point.
Exactly.
I'll take another Pepsi, thank you.
Yes.
Oh, gosh, Sam, what do you say we just talk about board games and what they've meant to us growing up? Probably won't get away with that. So let's talk about you breaking news. And by the way, thank you for breaking that news right when we came on the air. It was like 6:05, I think you published that. And we never get breaking news at 6 a.m. So thank you for the timing. And I know you had us in mind when you did that.
I did. Scheduled tweets are a beautiful thing. I'm just going to say I was awake, but,
Right.
That, not a shocker. Obviously, Vlade's moves on the roster have paid off. Some far more than any of us ever anticipated. Obviously, front and center is the DeMarcus Cousins trade that he was planned for and what had happened, and that now has had a lot to do with the core that they've got going forward. And then the draft picks that he went with have mostly hit of late anyway. So I think he definitely deserves more stability from the franchise, and I do credit them for seemingly creating a structure in terms of the longer Vivek has owned this team, the more it appears legitimately that he has ceded the kind of control to the people who get hired to do the basketball stuff, than he did in the early days when it seemed like he had his hands in everything. So, again, not a shocker, but that is the story.
And obviously we're going to spend a good amount of time in this conversation about the Sacramento Kings and what is or isn't coming for them. But I was thinking earlier this week, and you and I spoke about this, I think, a couple days ago when the Magic Johnson news came down. It is a rather interesting parallel that you have now 2 Hall of Famers who played together. We all know Magic was a huge mentor to Vlade coming over. Vlade saying he would step down in a couple years if things weren't working out. Magic Johnson alluding to the same thing, but I think it was like 3 years or whatever he said. And then you look going into this season, and when you look at, and this isn't a shot at media, I get it, but the overall narrative was Magic's Magic, and he's got LeBron, and he's building the team, and here's big old Vlade, Sacramento Kings, LOL, and that, by the way, is not a shot at you. We all thought coming into this year, I think most of us, that this team maybe had a future, but it was, probably somewhere around what Vegas said, 25 wins. I just found it amazing that you fast forward, and here we are in April, and the Magic Johnson debacle press conference was, in my opinion, embarrassing for that franchise. And here you are reporting that Vlade is getting an extension. I don't know what the odds were on that about 2 years ago, right. Magic getting fired and Vlade getting an extension, but I got to imagine he could have made some money.
For sure. What's interesting, though, there's some parallels there. Like, you see former players with no previous front office experience, I'm now looking at Adrian Wojnarowski of ESPN. Tweeting a bit, saying Vlade pushing to consolidate power as Kings' top basketball executive, weighing the dismissal of Dave Yeager. So we'll see what happens there.
Let me read that. If you will, let me just read that tweet entirely.
Yeah, I bumbled over that.
No, that's okay. Adrian Wojnarowski tweeting, Vlade Divac is pushing to consolidate his power as Kings' top basketball executive, seriously weighing the dismissal of Coach Dave Yeager, league sources tell ESPN. Divac Yeager set for meeting today. Yeager led Kings' young core to a 39-win season. He has 1 year left on his deal. That tweet just came over as Sam was on with us. So, Sam, you were talking about the parallels between
like new former players come in with no front office experience, and they stub their toe a lot early on. Vlade stubbed his toe, got through it. Magic stubbed his toe. I mean, Magic, it's funny, he got off to, the LeBron move was wonderful, and he does deserve a lot of credit for that. From there, he stumbled, building a roster around LeBron, and then, kind of the PR stuff, the media stuff, the interdynamic stuff, it just all went south really, really quickly. It's weird for me and a little surreal because having grown up watching him as a player and certainly admiring, his vibe and his positivity as a young guy, and then really his track record as an adult, I guess an older adult, as an executive, as a businessman, this is not the first time he's just kind of jumped ship when things got tough, and that's just a reality. When he was a coach, he made it 16 games in the 93-94 season, and sorry, text are distracting me. In the 93-94 season, I noticed yesterday, Dave, I don't know if you remember this story, when he was at ESPN as a NBA Countdown host or, personality, he jumped ship like in the beginning of the season because he got in a beef with Bill Simmons, and it was like a personal thing, and then he was out. So, there's that, and then, to Vlade's credit, he's fought through this stuff. And the tweet that we just read is definitely accurate in terms of, like I had reported this morning, Vlade has been given the green light to control this situation, and certainly that includes Dave Yeager and his future. And, and I think that's the next domino to fall here.
Somebody had mentioned earlier, and I know it was just a play on words as Sam Amick joins us, or just a twist of phrase, but that Vlade learned to be a leader this year, and I understand what they were saying. I took exception because Vlade has been a leader his whole life. Vlade could lead his entire country if need be. He's led the Olympic organization. He was a leader on the Kings. I mean, that's what he is. He is a leader. But do you think this year there was a palpable next step in his evolution as a GM when it comes to control, confidence, and for lack of a better term, swagger, where he made it very clear to everyone, whether it was fans, whether it was co-owners, whether it was maybe Vivek, management, whoever, players, that I'm the guy in charge. This is how it's going to be. This is how it's going to run. I don't care about the media. I don't care about outside noise. I feel like there was a next level to Vlade this year.
Yeah, there was. Yeah, I mean, that part, we talked before about that conference call with minority owners when he pushed back and essentially told them to stop telling them what to do. And what was happening there was, they had, the subplot with the Brandon Williams situation, the assistant GM who had gotten sideways with Yeager. And, at that time, there were definitely people internally calling for Brandon to be fired. And Vlade, it's what I've learned about him, and actually in that same breath, for Dave to get an extension. And that was a popular refrain from minority owners, from other people. And what I learned about Vlade is he's very stubborn when it comes to not, reacting well to being told what to do in this type of a position. Right. And so, and I think, but it was only because some of his moves paid off in terms of the roster, and that kind of created the kind of capital that he didn't have a couple of years ago, that he then had the ability politically to push back, to get on a conference call and say that, I'm tired of hearing from you people. I don't want to hear 15 voices every single day and emails left and right and everybody thinking that it's an open door of access. I'm either going to run this thing or I'm not. And so that's definitely been part of the evolution.
Sam Amick of The Athletic joining us. So, Sam, you had reported, and it's been reported, there's questions about the future of the coach and other questions, I'm sure, when it comes to management there. Exit interviews and conversations are going to happen today. So let me ask you, in your opinion, what are the questions Vlade Divac is going to need answered, or at least a couple of them, when it comes to weighing his decision on the future of that coaching staff?
I don't know. I mean, it's fresh and top of mind. I mean, part of me is like, well, why'd you sit the starters in the second half last night?
Sure.
People meaning like within the organization, it sounds kind of trivial, but like they wanted that 40th win to, in fact, I even heard Grant and Doug talking about it at one point on your station, the idea that 40 just sounded and felt a lot better than 39. and they didn't get it. They were up 28. And so things like that, there were a lot of, puzzling personnel moves that I think have made this thing, tougher than it would have otherwise been in terms of the dynamic and whether or not Dave is back for next year. And I think that the elephant in the room is not only the results and the finish. And I'll be honest, until I went and tallied it all for this latest story, and, I knew they struggled down the stretch. I didn't know it was as bad as 17 and 26.
Yeah.
When they were I think after they were 30 and 26 at one point. And not only that, they go out and get Harrison Barnes, and that's supposed to be kind of the thing to jack up the roster and get you to make the playoff push. And they were 11 and 17 with him. And then, he's playing the 4 spot when I think, the front office had viewed him as a 3, things of that nature. So those are the types of conversations, but the bigger macro look at it is the question of the communication internally. And like all those things I just raised, I think they're fixable, or at least like discussable, something you can discuss. I tried to invent a word there.
Sure.
But if the personal dynamics are not positive enough and free-flowing enough and healthy enough to work through stuff like that, then you probably, I think, have a problem.
And we talked about this earlier. A couple people brought it up, and I'll ask you because you deal with agents and coaches and obviously players all the time, and maybe obviously have a better understanding of the way things work than I do. Somebody asked. In fact, I think it was Jay that asked, "Hey, why not? He has 1 year left on his deal. Why commit to if you're not sure?" Then why is the choice between committing to him for 3 or 4 more years and firing him? Why not just bring him back next year and if things go right, discuss it then? Can you shed any light as to why? Yeah, I said that's just not an option. That's not the way it works. Am I wrong?
I got most of that. Is which part wrong?
I'm saying I had said my response was coaches just don't come back on the final years of their deal.
Right, yeah. It becomes a case, I think, of where is this going? What are we doing? You know what I mean? I think there's a case of, that's where we're at. If you're Dave, it's understandable if you're looking at this going, man, there were people around the league saying we couldn't win 20 games.
Right.
And I got him to basically twice that. And so, where's my money? Where's my contract? Where's my security? And, the whole time, it was a case of Vlade's deal had to get figured out first. Now, my understanding is that, Vlade had been approached earlier in the year, and, he knew that was something he wanted to handle in the off season. But you look at this now, I think part of his strategy certainly was, this is any good negotiator is going to look at that situation and say, he didn't want to talk about it at the All-Star break because who knows, they could have got to 48 wins and his leverage would have been even greater as an executive. But
Sure.
The other part is, you not just the money, which I don't know the money, but not just the years, but it's the power and the support. And now, again, with the next big choice to be made, it will be his.
We had speculated on this too earlier. Do you think part of it was also a strategy on Vlade's part? I don't know if strategy is the right word, but with the topic of the coaching staff and Jaeger and extensions, could part of it also have been maybe Vlade was fairly confident he'd be back, or at least trusted in that fact, and if he takes the extension at the All-Star break, now all of a sudden the onus is on him to extend the coaching staff. He can push it off to the offseason for both him and the coaches.
You can keep monitoring the situation, and the reality is, we're just, I don't know, this is what we do, right? Like, we read the room. So if we're reading the room right now, I don't think it looks great on Dave's part.
Right.
But, it's a case of, in the second half of the season is the main reason. So if Vlade had done the deal back then I think, he wouldn't have had this evidence in the second half of the season to chew on, to analyze, and figure out what he wanted to do. With that, my friend, I hate to do this, and you gave me the out, the qualifier. I think I need to jump.
Okay, Sam Amick of The Athletic. I'm going to let you go right now because Sam's got to work.
You're listening to The Drive.